Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the awesome Mike Thorwart. Mike, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Ken.
Oh, man, I'm so genuinely excited for a couple reasons. One, if you guys click this episode, you saw on that thumbnail, this is episode 300 of my first horror movie, and I am
Awesome.
over the moon. I can't believe I've been so lucky to meet amazing people and do this for such a long time. The longevity has been there. But I was able to get Mike, and he is the owner and creator of the amazing Dead Sled coffee. Now, for those of you that know, I'm a huge fan of this coffee. And Mike, how long have you been doing Dead Sled coffee?
Well, I will say this. I'm not the creator and I'm not the founder. I am an owner now, but the creator, her name is Diana.
Okay.
She started this. We turned 4 technically in August. So we're just a little over 3 years old, about 3.5 years old now. She founded this ages ago, and I've known her and her husband, Mike, who, also name is Mike, for years, even before this. And I started off just as the person that built their website for them because we're just friends. And it just got one thing to another, and I did it for free. I was like, you're my family. I'm not charging you to build a website. Like, that's stupid. Mm-hmm. So eventually, Mike offered me a position, or not like a position, but a partnership, a small ownership in it for just keep working and things like that. This was years ago. But then I fell in love with coffee, and being a lifelong horror fan that I am, it just kept progressing. We kept growing, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And now now I'm one of the, main owners. There's, 3 of us. And now, but she's the founder. So I'm not the founder. I'm just one of the owners.
I apologize. That's my.
Oh, no, that's fine. I didn't tell you. So you would have no idea.
No disrespect to her. Tell her I thank you for starting this amazing journey that we're all on. Because not only do you have this right here, which is the one, I can't brag about this enough. It's Never Sleep Again, your Nightmare on Elm Street coffee. Vietnamese blend. I personally go for the ground. I don't do the whole bean because I'm lazy as hell, but man, this is so good. Fine. But there's also so many other horror themed coffees that you guys have. From the Pennywise, what are some of the other horror themed coffees that you guys have?
Well, the first one we ever did was Robert Englund. That was the first horror themed one. It was right around COVID. At that point in time, I had a full-time job. I wasn't full-time Dead Sled yet. And I had just gotten laid off. And I'm sitting at home. I'm shipping out of my house. It was insane. First off, I'm just going to warn you real quick. You might see a cat come across. She can't handle me doing a podcast, and you might see her head pop in. But
love kitties, man. I'm totally fine with it.
So over COVID, the other partner, Mike, he had reached out to Robert's agent, and very, very quickly she responded and was like, "Hey, Robert loves coffee, and this is kind of interesting, and this is something that we kind of wanted always to do." And within a week, Mike, myself, Robert, and his agent were all sitting on a call. And I'm just sitting there. My favorite franchise of all time is Nightmare on Elm Street. So I'm trying my damnedest not to be a fanboy. And it was only supposed to be a 30-minute Zoom. There were no images. It was just the voice, right? So nobody had their images up. 30 minutes turned into an hour. He started talking about Vampira, Vincent Price. He was so into it. And he started doing the Freddy voice. And I'm just like, well, what are we doing here? Because up to this point, we had Vampira and Vincent Price and Bela Lugosi. But, that's why he kind of was attracted to us. So I guess that was kind of a fib saying he was our first horror thing. But he's alive. Right. So that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Right.
We did copies attributed to Vincent Price, Vampira, and Bella before him. So, but Robert was our first live human being that we worked with. And we sent him and Nancy out tons of samples. And the way it worked was we sent them a Vietnamese coffee and an Arabica blend of Latin American beans ground to a Turkish ground.
Yeah.
So one night, Nancy mixed the two. We got an email from Robert later the next day and goes, "Hey, Nancy tried these. She mixed them, we think we like this." And then that was it. That was the end of it. And the incredible Anders Ericsson, who does all the claws, who does all the gloves for them, he's the one that drew the artwork for the first bag. And that was it. And then we were just off and rolling.
Man, you talk about living the dream, man. Like, that's so amazing. And to know, like I said, and even like the pictures in the background, like those are so awesome.
This is my dining room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so dope, dude.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's amazing that, things that we all love can come together like that. Horror and coffee, like that's, I have to start every morning with coffee. I have to end every day with horror. Like, that's my life. And not only do I love this coffee, I'm willing to promote it as much as I possibly can. You obviously have already seen it on Twitter and Instagram, but you can look for yourself. I have the links right down here in the description. So I can't recommend it enough. And I would never bring anybody on here, and I would never talk about something so highly if I didn't personally believe in it. And I'll tell you this right now, this wasn't a free thing to do. I bought this because that's how much I believe in this product, and it is so good. And I will be getting more. So I can't recommend it enough, guys. Please make sure you're clicking these links down here in the description, following Dead Sled on social media, getting your own coffee, and sending me some recommendations. What's the kind that you got, and how much did you like it? So that way I could try that one too. So do you have any other future blends coming up that you can talk about yet? Or do you guys kind of keep that under wraps until release?
Well, no, we actually released the whole PR, like Bloody Disgusting, released the press release on us, and they did the news article about our Warner Brothers deal. And funny quick story, not to drag it out, but we were 24 hours from launch from Robert, and the initial artwork had him wearing the glove holding a cup of coffee, and we got a cease and desist letter from Warner Brothers.
What?
Saying we couldn't use the glove.
No way.
24 hours from launch, all of the artwork was already out there. Everybody knew what they were buying. And then the pre-order started. People started buying it. Got the cease and desist. And we're like, oh shit. I called Anders. I'm like, look, man, we have a problem. And he hurried up. He took away the glove. Made it like a fingerless glove, like with claw scratches in the mug to try to figure it out. We even had to change the colors of the bag because it was too close to the sweater.
Right.
So anyways, we changed the
Imagine
artwork.
Owning a sweater color. You know what I mean? Like, that's
it was insane to me.
Because I mean, obviously, I don't have to go too far. Like it's all over my house, man. And I can tell you guys know I usually decorate for the episode.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Nightmare on Elm Street today. That's not the movie we'll be talking about, but this is all the Freddy stuff that I have just within arm's reach. So I definitely understand where you're coming from, and that utter heartbreak and fear and anxiety you guys had to feel 24 hours before launch. I am so sorry, because what do you do then? You can't pull back,
we were freaking out.
Scramble.
And if you go back, if you scroll back all those years, eventually you'll run into it. But there's a post we had to put up saying, look, we're sorry. We had to change the artwork last minute. There's nothing we can do. You'll still win, like Anders donated a real glove, for like one of the winners, someone that participated in the pre-order won it. And like, what was it? How many autographs did he do? Was it 50? He signed 50 bags, something like that. But anyways, the artwork was changed. I responded to the legal department. I was like, all right, we changed the art. We're sorry. But now that I have you on the line, who can I talk to do I used a negative and turned it into a positive. I was like, who do I have to talk to in order to do a real Nightmare on Elm Street coffee?
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me this guy's number. I called him. I left a message. He called me like 2 days later. And he goes, he's like, we've never been into the coffee business. So now we launched It first. We have the entire It franchise. We have the Beetlejuice franchise, which we just launched back in March. We have the entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, including Freddy versus Jason. And we have the entire Friday the 13th franchise. So,
man,
those are all coming out. We're not sure how we're going to do it.
Right.
I think we're going to do Friday the 13th next. We wanted to launch it on Friday the 13th, but we had some creative differences with the bosses, so it got delayed. It just is what it is. You know, there's certain things that when you're working with a corporation like that, you got to follow rules. Yeah. And there were some things that had to change, so it was delayed a little bit. Nothing on them. They're just doing their jobs.
Well, and that's the thing with Friday the 13th being such a divisive franchise, especially right now with everything that's going on in the courts anyway. The last thing you want to do is try to push those boundaries at all, you know? Yeah,
we sent the bag over. The first bag design was so killer, but they're like, hey, you can't use this due to certain reasons. And I'm just like, all right, I guess. Like, it's going to delay the launch, but it's fine. It's a great coffee. It's a great blend. We can't wait to launch it. We're hoping June. We're hoping sometime in June is when it kicks off. And then we'll start back over. Like we already have an idea for it chapter 1, and then we're thinking of other flavors. And then we're going to do like box sets for Halloween.
Dude, I can't wait.
Yeah. It's like we have a whole plan. Like we have a whole 2022 year planned out with that stuff. And it's great. Like it's, we're not going to release what we're doing, but yeah, we have all those franchises and we can't wait.
Well, and the best thing about it is you guys don't have to wait for me to update you. Like I said, the social media links and the websites are all right down here. So make sure you're following those because I can't wait for these box sets. And obviously, as much of a Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street fan as I am, the very first piece of Sledgehammer horror merchandise that I ever made was this right here. The half mask with the Sledgehammer horror logo. Like, so, sick. These things are sucked. They mean so much to me. So I can't wait to try the Friday the 13th one. But man, we know what you're doing in the future, Mike, and we know what you've been doing right now with the coffee. But now, I talked about it at the beginning. Not only is this episode number 300, but this is very special to me because in 300 episodes, I've never talked about this movie. And so I want to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Mike, the first horror movie that you watched was?
I don't care what anybody says. Look at me in this camera. I don't care what anybody says. The Wizard of Oz is a freaking horror movie. And it scared the bejesus out of me as a kid.
I don't know how anybody can debate this being a horror movie. It's completely, I'm telling you the same thing. As a kid, this movie scared me. It floored me to no end. And we'll talk about that here in a second, but this is more about you. Do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
I would have to say maybe 5 or 6-ish. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know exactly. Obviously, my mom could probably tell you. But, I'd say 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. And I will never forget the first time when they went to color and the red smoke comes up and that little freaking witch came out. And I'm just like I'm getting the chills thinking about it. Like, it still freaks me out.
Yeah.
And I just buried my head in the pillow and I'm like, yeah, like this witch is insane. She's scared. She scared me to death. It just, and then from that moment forward, even in the black and white, she was a horrible person.
Yeah.
But
it
was just 100%. That's about 5 or 6. And I cried and I buried my face every time she came on screen. And it was awful.
And it's amazing because, even back then, the practical effects, and obviously we all know about some of the things that have been talked about, like that scene right there, actually, after she disappears, when she tries to fall down the trap door and she gets burned up, like all the tragedy that happened on the set, whether then the broom malfunctioned and her stunt double, or is it a bird? Is it a hanging munchkin in the background?
Right.
None of us.
Guy that evidently hung himself on set.
Mm-hmm. Like you hear all these stories, and I think it really, really plays into how special the Wizard of Oz is. And as a kid, I'll tell you this: when you have those flying monkeys attacking, that was a wrap for me. that scared me so bad.
It's brutal. Like, it like might have just been a scarecrow, but like they're stomping on him and they're ripping, like he's alive, right? Like that's a real thing, a real living thing with feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And they're stomping on him and ripping him apart. Like if that was done in 2022, if they just happened to redo it,
mm-hmm.
like they would make it a disgusting scene. Like there would be something happening in that scene where, oh, he doesn't have a brain, but he has a heart, right? It was just like, they would do something crazy like that. Like that was a brutal scene if you really think about it.
And then not only that, but you have the other ones that are literally kidnapping Dorothy. You know,
absolutely,
they're tearing him apart, kidnapping Dorothy. So now you're feeling that anxiety for her too as a child, you know, because we're watching this girl that's our protagonist, and we're just like, yes, she's gonna make it, and now she's been kidnapped, which is absolutely terrifying when you're watching it as a kid.
Yep, absolutely.
So, Mike, we know which scene affected you the most, being the witches when she first appears. You know what that scene right there. But what would you say your favorite scene from The Wizard of Oz is?
I don't even have to think about it. It's the hourglass scene when she has the big hourglass in the red sand, and she walks, and she gets real close to her. She has that voice. I can't do it. It sounds terrible, but and then she's like, yeah, my pretty. She turns it upside down and she gets all excited and she walks away. I'm just like, yeah, that's brutal. Like,
yeah,
you know, and
so
that's
good.
It's like, this is how much time you have to live.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I'm like, talk about a villain, man.
Yeah.
Like she is 100% one of the top villains, especially for the time. Because back then, you know, especially because this was more of a kid-friendly movie, and we could go on and on about how this isn't a horror movie, but I mean, look at the sequel alone that it spawned, The Return to Oz. That's 100% a horror movie as well to me, like with the Wheelers and all that stuff. Like, and I think that really started with this film and how scary this film truly was to a lot of people. Now, obviously, there's not too many kills in The Wizard of Oz, but I do want to talk about the one prevalent one. You obviously have the house dropping at the beginning, but I don't think anybody on this planet has ever been splashed with water and not gone, oh, what a world, I'm melting. What was it like for you seeing this witch die the first time that you had seen it?
You know, it still kind of scared me because they drug out that scene it was a long death scene. If you really go back and watch it, I'm sure you can YouTube, because you can YouTube anything now, but it was a long death scene. And she just didn't die, and it was going on and on and on. And then finally at the end, when she just kind of whittles away, and it's just the hat, you know, and her robe or her cloak or whatever. I'm like, fine.
And I will tell you this, because I don't put clips on here that are any longer than 10 seconds. The clip you guys just watched over top of her dying is cut down so much, and it took me so long to edit that down to make it look good. So I definitely understand what you're talking about there. Because when I was editing it, I was like, man, it's going to take me a minute to make this fit here.
Yeah, it's a long death scene.
So obviously right now in Hollywood, prequels, requels, sequels are all the rage. It's something that that's what it is. Now, The Wizard of Oz has had a sequel in The Return to Oz, but today, 2022, would you like to see The Wizard of Oz remade?
I don't know that answer. That's a hard question for me, because I think they could kill it. I think if they got the right cast, the right directors, and the right, you know, and just the right staff around it, I think they could kill it. I don't think they need to overdo it. I think that they can keep it about the same, not try to make it more dark, not try to, you know, not try to remake Nightmare on Elm Street, right? Like how they did. Keep it the same, but make it a little more, I don't know what it is, but I would watch it.
Yeah. And that's my thing. I don't think I would ever push for it, but if it happened, that'd be it. I mean, funny enough, James Franco's The Great and Powerful Oz. I was there the day it came out, you know, like I was clipping my slippers halfway through the movie saying there's no place like home, but I was there watching, you know.
I think if done properly, they could kill it, but I think it would be a thin line between they shouldn't touch it
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it would work. You would have so many people bashing them though, saying this is a classic, it shouldn't be retouched, or it shouldn't be touched again. But why not? I mean, it was so long ago.
No, yeah, but the worst thing that's going to happen, it's going to be bad. It doesn't taint the first one,
right?
Right, and it's going to introduce a new audience to the first one that had never seen the original. So to me, there's really no negative to doing a remake, because, like I said, if you don't like it, don't watch it. It has no effect on the first one. It's not like, hey, we're going to remake this and you'll never be able to watch that first one again.
Absolutely. It's just like a band redoing a song and it still sounds good. It's like, oh, it's not the original, but this isn't bad.
Right. It doesn't erase the original from history.
Correct.
So we talked about The Wizard of Oz, Mike, being your first horror movie and how much that movie meant to you. But now I want to throw a little bit of a curveball at you here.
Okay.
My little buddy Ghostface has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Mike? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Now, that's a trick question in my opinion, because I have a favorite horror franchise and I have a favorite horror movie.
Let's hear them both.
My favorite horror franchise, unquestionably, is Nightmare on Elm Street. There's no argument. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. In my opinion, it's the GOAT as far as franchises go. I don't think anything's better. Others have somewhat gotten close. And I know it's not the OG, right? Like Friday the 13th, or it was Halloween was the first, and then Friday the 13th came out, and then it was Nightmare on Elm Street. So it was Halloween. Friday the 13th was 1980. I believe Nightmare on Elm Street was 1984.
84.
But franchise-wise, Nightmare on Elm Street. Favorite horror movie of all time, one that scared the shit out of me, that ruined me. I actually have a tie, and it's the original Paranormal Activity, and it's the original Blair Witch.
Oh, nice, man. And I will ask you this. Have you seen the alternate endings to the Blair Witch Project?
Have I?
Well, if you haven't, they are available on YouTube. And in one of them, you see the witch. I'll tell you that. So if you get the chance, I would strongly recommend checking it out. I think they went the right route with the theatrical release. I think that was the best ending of the bunch. But it is still fun to see how it plays out. And I can't lie. I think the Blair Witch Project is absolutely amazing. I liked Paranormal Activity. I just didn't have the impact. Maybe because I was a little bit older. It didn't have the impact on me that Blair Witch did. But I do love it. Now, I do want to bounce back real quick, though. You talked about how A Nightmare on Elm Street is your favorite franchise. What would you say your favorite film from the franchise is?
The first one I ever saw, which was part 3. I actually saw part 3, and then when I fell in love with it, I went back and started over again, right? So I was a little too young. I was born in 79. So when part 1 came out, I was only 5.
Sure.
When part 2 came out, I was 6. Part 3 came out in 87. So I was 8. And then by the time I got to VHS, I might have still been 8, but it might have been 9, because back then it took a little while to get to VHS.
Oh, for sure.
I was at my buddy Dave's house. He lived right at the end of the street. His parents didn't care what he watched, and he had Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 on tape. I spent the night. We watched it. And I'll never forget the scene towards the beginning where she's trying to rescue the girl, and she gets stuck in the tar. Or the oil or whatever it is, and he comes running around the corner. I'm getting the chills again, man. And then it just set such an impact on me. And I was like, this is incredible. I'm like, I have to see the others. And then I went back. I watched 1, then I watched 2. And after all of them, part 3 is still my favorite because it had the biggest impact on me when it came to Nightmare on Elm Street.
See, and it's funny because I will always say that when it comes to being a horror movie, I think the closest thing I've ever seen to a perfect horror movie is the OG Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that's the closest thing I've ever seen to just being a perfect horror movie. But when it comes to my favorite in the franchise, and I'm in the huge minority here, but it's the one I watched first. It's the one I watched the most as a kid, and that is The Dream Master Part 4. I watched that one over and over again as a kid. It was just the one that was always on, and that's the one that meant the most to me. And I watch it now, and I'm like, ooh, some of it doesn't hold up, but I still love it, man. And I'm with you. I think, for me personally, I think Child's Play is probably my favorite horror franchise. I feel like with the longevity, but Nightmare's right there. There's 2 bad Nightmare films in my opinion that I just don't like, and it's 5 and 6. Besides that, I can live with all of them. And even 6, Freddy's Dead has a special place for me because I saw it in 3D as a kid. So, going to the cinema, watching a horror movie in 3D as a kid, that that was the bee's knees, man. That's where it was at. So
I've never done that. I've never gone to a theater and watched a movie in 3D ever in my entire life.
Dude, for me personally, it's awesome when it's a horror movie, just because it is, we've seen a couple of them now, but the problem is there for a while, everything was going out in 3D and it started to really, water down the effect,
Fair enough.
It's be like someone would walk by the camera and be like, it's over that way, and something's in your face. So
right. Like they pushed it too much, just a little bit. It's like they didn't. Yeah.
By the time we got to seeing Clash of the Titans in 3D, I was like, okay, I think this is about enough. When I go and watch guys in loincloths in 3D, I'm about spent. So
that's funny.
Man, Mike, I did have an amazing time talking about horror with you. I have one last question for you before you go. I want to bounce back to the Wizard of Oz. And what we're going to do now is we're going to rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not judging this movie on production, quality, score, direction, none of the above. What we're doing is strictly judging it on how much it affected you on first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. What would your ranking of the Wizard of Oz be?
4.75. It's
right.
The only reason why that I don't give it a 5 is because it had enough calming scenes for me as a kid to where I could actually get back into the movie and not be scared for a while. Like I could get into it while they were walking down the yellow brick road, and be cool and be into it. Be like, popcorn, Kool-Aid, it's fine, But then the point, the 4.75 comes back when all of a sudden she's throwing fireballs.
I'm right at the scarecrow. It's setting him on fire.
I'm like, why is she back? But I would say 4.75, unquestionably.
Yeah, we were having such a great time, and now this bitch is back throwing fireballs at the scarecrow.
100%. Like, why is she here?
Well, man, again, thank you so much for coming on. Please don't go anywhere, Mike. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.